Hi, Michelle. So it's your last set of essays. That's great. Let's take a look at what you wrote about this flow chart. The diagram illustrates the process uh, by which something is made by, that's the right way to say this, by which 5 types of tea are made. Overall, the process begins with cleaning the tea leaves and then go through different steps depending on the tea types. Well, yes, the grammar here is a little off though. So it begins with cleaning and then going through various steps. But still, that's still a little awkward. So maybe we could change that a bit too. Let's try it one more time. Overall, the process begins with cleaning the tea leaves. And following this, they go through different steps. Okay? Or overall, the process begins with cleaning the tea leaves, following which they go through different steps. So there are a handful of different ways you could say that. All right, so firstly, freshly plucked tea leaves will be sorted and cleaned before they are processed. White tea is the simplest to make among all. After steaming the sterile tea leaves, careful, I don't know why you're calling them sterile. They are left to dry in order to produce white tea. To produce green tea, oolong tea, or black tea, tea leaves will be withered once cleaned. Then, tea leaves are heated by pan frying or steaming before they, careful with your agreement here, they are rolled and shaped into green tea. Green tea with jasmine flower scent can be produced if jasmine flower is added while drying. All right, here you could have been a little more cohesive. So, green tea with jasmine flower scent can be produced if this is added while drying. That would have made sense too. To produce oolong tea or black tea, tea leaves need to be fermented. Okay, sieved tea leaves that are fermented for a short period of time will produce oolong tea after it is pan-fried and dried. Next, there are 2 types of black tea, Gong Fu Black or Broken Black. Gong Fu Black has tea leaves in strips shape, while Broken Black are cut into pieces. All right, this is a little awkward. Gong Fu Black tea leaves are cut into strips. All right, so let's do that. While Broken Black are cut into pieces. I think that works better. In contrast to oolong tea, black tea is fully fermented before it is dried by firing. Finally, scented tea is produced by using dried green tea, black tea, or oolong tea leaves as a base. In order to produce scented tea, the tea leaves are scented with fruits and flowers before again, this is consistent, you have to make sure that these agree, okay? So, what do we got here? Okay, fine. All right. I don't know. Is this one of ours? Let's see. Let's see. Income tax, depending on status. Let's see. Okay. The line graph compares income tax between different marital statuses. You need a plural here across 6 countries. Overall, married workers pay lower income tax compared to singles, except for Finland, where tax rates are the same regardless of status. Civil status. Perfect. Belgium has the largest gap in income. Okay. Income tax between married and single people. The income tax for singles is nearly double that of married, around 20%. Okay, 28%. In contrast, in Finland, the income tax for both marital status, no. In contrast, the income tax for both married and single people is the same at 25%. For the remaining countries, the income tax for married couples is less than single income tax by 3 to 5%. In Denmark, the income tax for singles is the highest at 30%. Yes, okay. Single income tax in Denmark is almost 3 times that of the Czech Republic. Okay. Let's see. Married workers in Czech Republic and France pay less than 10% income tax. The income tax rate for singles in Canada and France are less than 20%. Okay. So this was fine in many ways, but I can't say that I absolutely agreed with your organization of this. I like your thought process. It was certainly sophisticated when you started looking at it by the difference, but I thought what ended up happening was that this became a little difficult to understand. Okay, though, in your room. The catalaves. Don't do it in here. Boo, do it in your room, please. Come on. No, shush. Right. So you decided to start with Belgium. I don't entirely agree with that. There are a couple, not a couple, actually, there are many, many different ways to do this. I think that some ways lend themselves to a cleaner, easier sort of description than others. So I probably would have started, I would have had a paragraph just with the figures for single people. And I would have started with Denmark, just as you did. I then would have talked about Finland and Belgium together. Okay. And then I certainly would have talked about Czech Republic. Don't know that I would need to go into the rest of those countries necessarily. So 1, 2, 3, 4 countries for sure that I would talk about in terms of the singles. And then I would probably have a paragraph for the married people. And I would use a nice linker like, in contrast, the figures for married people were consistently lower. Okay. I would say here again, Denmark had the highest, but it was very close to the figure for Finland. And then I would say what you said about Finland having equal taxes for both single and married, because that's a super interesting figure there. I would say that the figures for Czech Republic were also similar in terms of that difference, that they were also very low for single people, for married people. Sorry, forgive me. And then I would try to pick out maybe a couple of the countries that you hadn't talked about for the married. So what could you have said here? Maybe yeah, this thing about Belgium having the biggest gap, I think that's a good point to make. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, we didn't say anything about France, although that's also an interesting figure. You could talk about France being the second lowest for both, okay, for both married and singles. So yeah, if you wanted, you could have said the 2 highest figures and you could have talked about the 2 lowest figures. You could have talked about this difference. So there were things that you could do, but that's probably how I would do it. I would split it into single people and then married people. That's probably a cleaner way. You kind of lost me when you kept doing this, like flipping between different countries. So that's just one suggestion to think about. All right, on the whole, though, it was good. So let's keep going and look at your task 2 here about moving to regional locations. Let's see what you said. Recently, governments throughout both the developed and developing world have encouraged the relocation of corporations from urban areas to rural regions in order to tackle air pollution and housing problems in the city. This essay will use the examples from the Malaysian government and Oxford University to demonstrate the benefits and drawbacks of this policy. All right, I think that's lovely. I think that's really, really nice. So no comments about that. That's what you should do. Let's take a look at your body paragraphs. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that by relocating the large company, no, take a look at this. You don't want by. So when you use by, what happens is you kind of have to say something like, by relocating, etc., 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 this will happen. But you don't have that. So you don't want by here. Instead, you want, there's ample evidence that relocating the large companies will solve two of the major problems in cities, such as air pollution and housing issues. The central reason behind you need a full stop here. Is that a full stop? Let me see. I can't really tell what you have there. It looks like a comma. This should be a full stop. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, the number of vehicles in urban cities, IES, will reduce. Well, not the number will reduce. It's a little awkward. The number will drop. The number will decline, maybe. Not decline, drop. When the business is moved to other regions, this will alleviate traffic congestion in the city and reduce carbon monoxide emitted by cars on the road. Secondly, the implementation of this policy will create more affordable housing for people to own. For example, recent empirical research by the Malaysian government demonstrated that 70% of Malaysians are unable to afford a property in the city due to ridiculously high prices. It's a little informal, so careful with this word ridiculously. You could have just said extremely. Hence, when companies are moved to rural areas, the area will be developed and cheaper houses will be built. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that the relocation of companies will improve the quality of life of workers. Okay. I think that that's very good. So let me just look at it for a minute again, and I'll tell you if I have any additional feedback. I read it through. I thought it was well developed. I don't really have any other comments to make about this other than what I've already said. So let's move on to your next paragraph, okay? On the other hand, although there is a case for the employee, there is a case for the employees what? You need to finish this. It has to be a clause. So you could have said something like, although there is a case for the benefits to employees, that would have been a nice way to say this. The impact of the policy on profits of the companies, the impact of this policy on company profits. You see, I'm never really a fan of sentences that have too many prepositions. So here you've got of the policy on profits of the companies. It just feels a little heavy. So you could clean this up by saying something like the impact of this policy on company profits. Okay? Cannot be overstated. You don't need a comma here. This is largely because it is difficult to commute and transport goods in rural areas. For example, higher fees will be charged to companies to transport products from rural areas to cities as compared to before. Due to the increase in geographical distance, companies that have a huge customer base in the city will most likely experience a drop in sales. For instance, an extensive study by Oxford University showed that over 80% of businesses had plummeted sales. Careful with this language here. Let's try that again. Yeah, it should be saw their sales plummet. That would be better. For instance, an extensive study by Oxford University showed that over 80% of businesses saw their sales plummet due to change of locations to rural districts. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that relocation of companies affects their profit earnings. Lovely. Good. From the arguments and examples given, it is clear that there are advantages and disadvantages to moving companies to regional locations. Although it might prove to be beneficial to workers and the environment, it destructively affects the operation of a company. I don't like that word there, it destructively affects. That's not such a great term to use. However, despite the drawbacks, it is predicted that this policy will increasingly be implemented. That's good. Let's fix this now, this destructively affect. This negatively affects this, what else? Let's see, although it might prove to be beneficial to workers and the environment, it drastically affects, you could say. That also would have been okay. All right, so just be careful with some of this. I think you did a very nice job. I think there are some errors. Okay, it's not, flawless. There are some mistakes throughout the essay. So you really need to work on those to ensure that you'll get the band score you need. But you're definitely on the right track. So I don't remember if you mentioned to us when your exam is. If you have a little time, even just a few days, then I definitely recommend signing up for some more essay corrections. It'll give you an opportunity to get more practice, you'll get more feedback, and that will help you improve, okay? See if that's something you can do. I really would like to see you continue so that we can help you work towards your IELTS goal. So hopefully we'll hear from you and we'll continue working together. All right. Lots of luck to you. Do let me know either way what you do if you take your exam and how it goes. So just keep in touch and we'll be waiting to hear from you. Good luck.